I swear, celebrity crash-outs are the gift that keeps on giving. If you're a cynical man like me, you enjoy some schadenfreude, especially when it comes to stars who do it to themselves. If only all Hollywood actors could be as cool as, say, Jeff Goldblum, then I'd be denied this joy.
People always ask me how I pronounce my name, Goldblum or Goldblum. I always tell them the same thing: how dare you speak to me?
Welcome to part 3 of the video series that seems to have no end, because celebrity crash-outs are constantly happening in real time. Whenever I think I'm done, the comment section lights up with more names I somehow forgot about. So what are we doing? Let's just dive in, shall we?
Rachel Zegler. Again.
Yep, she might have been in part 1 of this video series, but we're back to her, because her situation just keeps getting worse and worse, and quite frankly, more hilarious. Sorry to all 3 of her fans, but reality is reality. She's the greatest name in a world of self-ownage.
I'm here to tell you that this whore you all adore, this slut you can't rebut, this tramp is still the tramp.
And who can Rachel Zegler blame? Well, Rachel Zegler, of course. She's officially Hollywood's equivalent of a biohazard. Whatever clout she thought she had evaporated the minute Snow White stopped looking like a reimagining and started looking like a controlled demolition. She's being ghosted in real time by producers, by co-stars, even by her fellow Oscar Factory alum. The girl who was once being positioned as Disney's next face of the brand is now the cautionary tale every PR team cites in meetings. Don't go full Zegler might as well be on the PowerPoint slide. What was supposed to be a progressive fairy tale reboot has turned into a cinematic funeral pyre, and no one wants to be caught holding the torch. Industry friends are peeling off like flies, each one either openly shading her or quietly stepping back like she's about to detonate, which, to be fair, she kind of already did. Let's talk numbers, because those don't lie. Though Disney's accountants probably wish they could, Snow White is projected to lose a staggering $115 million. That's after dumping $500 million into this glittering disaster, with $350 million being thrown at the production and at least another $150 million into marketing, promotional junkets, press tours, and whatever it costs to keep Zegler off Twitter for more than 5 minutes. And what did all that investment buy? A $14 million second weekend. That's not just bad, that's catastrophic. We're talking a 66% domestic drop and a limp $143 million global haul. This film fell harder than Disney's remaining credibility. It's tanking faster than Rachel Zegler's approval rating, and if her publicist is still taking her calls at this point, they deserve hazard pay. But if you're wondering how you can manage to turn Snow White, an IP so iconic it's practically bulletproof, into a cinematic cautionary tale, the answer sits squarely with Rachel Zegler. She didn't just sabotage this film, she launched a full-blown PR jihad against it, then acted surprised when the audience showed up with pitchforks. She went on press tours acting like the 1937 original was some kind of fascist propaganda. Prince Charming? A stalker. The story? Weird. Her tone? Somewhere between smug TED Talk and Tumblr post. It was like watching someone trash their own wedding and then wondering why no one caught the bouquet. But she didn't stop at cinematic hearsay. No, Zegler thought it'd be a fantastic idea to throw in some political Molotov cocktails for good measure, openly attacking a presidential candidate, telling his supporters they should never know peace, and weighing in on the Israel-Gaza conflict like she moonlights as a geopolitical analyst between takes. Because nothing says family-friendly Disney marketing like alienating half the country while dragging the other half into a war discourse. The backlash got so ugly that Snow White's own producer Mark Platt reportedly flew to New York to personally tell her to shut the hell up before she cratered the film entirely. His own son, Jonah Platt, then jumped on social media and publicly dragged her for narcissism, blaming her for the box office nosedive. Just to be clear, when the producer's family is publicly accusing you of tanking a $500 million film, that's not criticism, that's an obituary. But wait, Zegler's own allies weren't done. Her West Side Story co-star Ariana DeBose jumped in with a passive-aggressive Instagram post quoting Jonah's takedown, right before deleting it, because nothing says I support you like sneak dissing your former friend in a story post. At this point, Rachel's support system has more holes than the Snow White script. And just when you thought the list of random celebrity shade couldn't get weirder, Danica Patrick, yes, that Danica Patrick, decided to toss a casual bye-bye on a repost, slamming Zegler, like she was waving her off the track and into the cinematic graveyard. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, Sean Ono Lennon rose from the cultural dead to call her a spoiled, ungrateful brat on X, before also deleting it. It was a bizarre drive-by of celebrity backstabbing, like everyone suddenly remembered they had beef with Rachel and decided to settle it publicly, mid-flop. Meanwhile, Disney tried damage control with all the subtlety of a kitchen fire. Promotions were scaled back, press opportunities disappeared, and they essentially put Zegler in witness protection to avoid giving her another microphone. But by then, the damage was irreversible. This wasn't just a flop, it was a full-blown implosion. A failure so so total that it made Dumbo look like Frozen by comparison. Even The Little Mermaid, a film that underperformed, now looks like a quiet success next to Snow White's flaming carcass. And after months of dragging the project, trashing the source material, and alienating every quadrant of the audience, Rachel suddenly pulled a 180. In a last-ditch attempt at salvage, she started calling it the honor of a lifetime. Like we all forgot she spent the entire year acting like the script was a hate crime. Too little too late, Rachel. By then the internet had receipts, the memes were flying, and the narrative had been calcified. You don't get to burn the house down and then ask for a standing ovation because you brought marshmallows. The only person still clapping was Pedro Pascal, who for reasons unknown jumped in to call her an icon on Instagram. It was a sad little life raft in a sea of mockery, like tossing a towel to someone already drowning in their own ego. So where does that leave us? Disney is out hundreds of millions. Rachel Zegler is radioactive. And Snow White is now the textbook case of what happens when you cast someone who thinks they're smarter than the audience, more enlightened than the brand, and bulletproof against backlash. Hilariously, she was none of those things. So the result? The most publicized, over-budget, and self-sabotaged Disney remake in modern memory. The lesson here is simple, folks. All the diversity, all the empowerment buzzwords, all the progressive reimaginings in the world can't save a film from an actress determined to torpedo it. Rachel Zegler wanted to make a statement. Congratulations. You did it. Unfortunately, the statement was, this is what happens when narcissism meets IP. And the fact she still calls it the honor of a lifetime, that's a punchline. This isn't a fairy tale, it's a PR horror story dressed like a princess movie. And Rachel Zegler wrote it herself, one tone-deaf quote at a time. Before we move on to the next celebrity disaster, a quick word about the sponsor of this video. And as always, my friends, I timestamped this bitch for your convenience, so you don't have to watch it if you don't want to. But if you do, I love you, baby. So this fits right in with videos about celebrities. Personal vanity. I'm just kidding, but I personally care about taking care of my hair, and I stumbled across Kitsch recently, and it's been a real daily hygiene game changer. So it's cool when sponsors come knocking that I'm already using. I've been using Kitsch Rosemary and Biotin shampoo and conditioner bars. Yes, bars, not liquid. And they're super efficient at giving me that look of healthier, fuller hair. Look, I'm 38, and while I have pretty decent hair, anything that helps make it look fuller, I'll take it. And Kitsch definitely helps in that regard. The shampoo and conditioner cleanse from the root to the ends and are infused with rosemary and biotin to help thicken hair strands from within. It's basically nourishing your hair for stronger strands. And there's just a bit of a bonus here that it reduces single-use plastic, so it's vicariously great for the environment to not be throwing 2 empty plastic bottles of shampoo and conditioner away into a landfill. To be honest, I was a little skeptical about bar shampoo at first, but now I couldn't see myself going back. You can also get this self-draining soap dish, which honestly looks really good and is super helpful. What's cool is that right now the shampoo and conditioner combo is less than $25 with my code. And right now that code is 25% off site-wide, which auto applies at checkout with my link. Kitsch ships in the US and internationally to over 90 countries and has a subscription option for an even better deal. Thanks to Kitsch for sponsoring this video, and now back to it, baby.
Cynthia Erivo.
Cynthia Erivo is what happens when a goth theater girl meets an unchecked ego and decides to hold the rest of the world hostage. Currently best known for her likeness to Count Orlok, she was once seen as the heir apparent to the Viola Davis throne. A powerhouse with pipes, gravitas, and just enough British polish to be considered Oscar bait. But she now occupies that rare air of celebrity where everything she says feels like a lecture, and every appearance doubles as a PR misfire in progress. The arc from beloved star to walking controversy has been swift, aggressive, and frankly kind of hilarious, if you're someone who enjoys watching self-importance implode in real time. Now, I won't pretend she's not gifted. She's an extremely talented singer. She's got pipes and can cry on cue like her rent depends on it. And yet, for all the noise she makes, it's her persona, not her performances, that dominate headlines. Cynthia has somehow managed to turn herself into a case study in how to completely mismanage public perception, one Instagram tantrum and self-righteous press tour at a time. Take, for example, the absolute clown show surrounding the Wicked fan poster. You know the one. A nostalgic nod to the original Broadway marketing. The image was created by someone who dared, yes, dared, to obscure part of Erivo's face in the process of recreating a beloved piece of theater history. Rather than ignoring it, or better yet, appreciating it as the fan tribute it obviously was, Cynthia did what an overly sensitive, terminally online celebrity would do. She made it about her. "You're erasing me," she claimed with her Ozempic face, launching into a meandering social media screed read so dripping with self-pity it could have been ghosts written by Elliot Page. And just like that, a fan's harmless tribute became a national emergency in the mind of Cynthia Erivo. This wasn't activism, this wasn't empowerment. It was a textbook example of a celebrity whose self-image is so fragile, so dependent on constant adulation, that even a cropped nose on a fan edit becomes a hate crime. It was performative indignation masquerading as moral clarity, and it was exhausting. But she didn't stop there. No, that would be too merciful. The Wicked press tour became its own traveling circus of self-aggrandizement, a masterclass in how to alienate an audience before the movie even premieres. In one interview, when a reporter used the phrase holding space to describe the song Defying Gravity, a phrase so benign it might as well have come from a yoga class, Cynthia reacted like she'd just been asked to solve a quadratic equation. Confused blinking, vague condescension, a palpable air of, "How dare you speak to me in your peasant dialect?" The clip went viral not because it was charming, but because it captured the full Cynthia Erivo experience in under 60 seconds. Overdramatic, aloof, and allergic to sincerity. It's the kind of press tour that turns moviegoers off before they've even bought a ticket. Because while audiences can handle weird, and they'll even tolerate arrogant if it's fun, what they won't abide is a celebrity who takes herself so seriously she can't play along. When your every soundbite sounds like a thesis defense at Oberlin, you lose people. And Cynthia, bless her frail face, has become the poster child for that particular brand of prestige star turned podium preacher. And then there's that casting choice. The one that sent Twitter into cardiac arrest and Reddit into meltdown mode. Cynthia Erivo as Jesus Christ. That's not a joke. That's not a parody headline from The Onion. That is a real, actual thing that happened in the timeline we all apparently share. Jesus Christ, superstar, reimagined with Cynthia in the lead. On paper, this might seem like a bold, progressive choice. In reality, it felt like someone threw darts at a chalkboard titled Controversy for Controversy's Sake and landed on What if Cynthia Erivo plays Jesus? Predictably, the backlash was immediate. But here's the twist. It came from actual theater fans. People who loved Jesus Christ Superstar and were deeply confused as to whether this was a gimmick or a legitimate reinterpretation. But rather than engage with the criticism, Cynthia went full martyr, no pun intended. She treated every question, every raised eyebrow as an attack, as if being cast as Jesus wasn't already the ultimate invitation for scrutiny. And while the production predictably framed it as a challenge to traditional norms and an artistic evolution, it played out more like a desperate cry for attention wrapped in the language of social progress. The show came and went. Reactions were mixed, and Cynthia's response? Unbothered, unflinching, and completely uninterested in self-reflection. A perfect encapsulation of her brand. It's almost impressive, really, how consistently she repels sympathy. In another now infamous interview, she claimed her drama school labeled her as lazy. Her reasoning? Not laziness, obviously, but that she was overworked, misunderstood, and naturally systemically oppressed. And she doesn't just recount hardship, she polishes it into a brand. Every setback becomes a monologue, every criticism becomes oppression, and she always comes out the wounded genius, the visionary who's just too radical for this cruel, undeserving world. It's a pattern, always has been, and it's why people have stopped rooting for her. She never owns anything. Not the backlash, not the awkward interviews, not even her own past behavior. Like those resurfaced tweets where she mocked African American vernacular while conveniently aligning herself with the Black American identity whenever it benefits her image. Her defense? It was all taken out of context. Classic. At this point, that phrase should be etched onto a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, reserved for celebrities who refuse to apologize with even a shred of sincerity. Oh, but let's not forget the romantic subplot, because of course there's one. Enter Lena Waithe, another once beloved figure now enjoying her own free fall into public indifference. Cynthia and Lena's relationship unfolded like a prestige series on HBO. Infidelity rumors, emotional wreckage, and a slow, grim realization that maybe, just maybe, these two pillars of performative progressivism weren't actually that different from every other messy celebrity couple. You'd think they'd keep it quiet, but no, that would require self-awareness. Instead, they made their relationship part of their public narrative, right up until it collapsed under the weight of its own hypocrisy. Now you can't mention one without a whispered reference to the other, like a tabloid version of Beetlejuice. Say their names 3 times and someone at BuzzFeed starts writing a think piece. At this point, Cynthia Erivo has turned the art of alienating an audience into a lifestyle. It's not just the controversies, it's how she handles them. She never explains, she never reflects. She just continues plowing forward, steamrolling through bad PR like a method actress who refuses to break character. Her fans are dwindling, her defenders are quieter, and yet, somehow, she's still under the illusion conclusion that the world is just too dim to appreciate her brilliance. It's not that audiences are incapable of nuance. It's that they're sick of being condescended to by celebrities who confuse their own insecurities for enlightenment. Cynthia Erivo is not being held back by the system. She's being held back by herself. Her refusal to engage with genuine criticism, her compulsive need to center herself in every conversation, and her tendency to turn every minor offense into a social justice crusade have made her insufferable. She's the walking embodiment of Hollywood's worst instincts, talent buried beneath layers of branding, victimhood, and ego. She had the chance to become a generational talent. Instead, she chose to become a cautionary tale. And that's not tragic, that's just predictable. So here she is with a career teetering on the edge, a fan base that's more confused than loyal, and a legacy that reads less like a resume and more like a red flag. If you're wondering how someone so gifted can fumble the bag this hard, just look at the receipts. They're all over Twitter, they're in every interview, they're in every public meltdown disguised as empowerment. Cynthia Erivo isn't being persecuted, she's being tuned out. And for someone who so desperately wants to be heard, that might be the harshest blow of all.
Amber Heard.
Ah yes, Amber Turd. I can't believe it took 3 videos in this series, but I finally got here. You absolutely cannot talk about celebrities self-destructing without mentioning this woman. She's the kind of celebrity whose name alone now triggers a collective eye roll, a legal-sized migraine, or a Twitter thread that spirals into incoherence within 5 replies. She went from up-and-coming starlet to courtroom soap opera villain in record time, faster than Lindsay Lohan could say misunderstood. Once seen as a promising actress and Elon Musk role-play fantasy, Amber is something now far more mundane, radioactive, not tragic, not controversial, just unwanted. And we won't pretend this is just because of the Johnny Depp situation. Yes, that Johnny Depp situation. Nah, Amber's PR disaster wasn't an overnight implosion. It was a slow motion collapse built on shaky talent, unearned arrogance, and the kind of public behavior that turns even sympathetic audiences into skeptics. She didn't just lose the court case, she lost the narrative, the industry, and frankly, any remaining goodwill. You know, for a while, Hollywood really tried to like her, gave her roles, magazine covers, red carpets. She had the looks, the connections, and the kind of early buzz that could have taken her somewhere if she had the range to back it up. Unfortunately for her, she, didn't. Her performances had the emotional depth of a perfume commercial and the charisma of an unpaid intern, but she wasn't cast for her acting, she was cast because she looked like a star. That worked until it didn't, and then came the courtroom. The Johnny Depp trial was supposed to be her moment of vindication, the high-profile battle, where she'd emerge as the phoenix from the ashes of abuse. Instead, it became the most catastrophic self-own in modern celebrity history, on live TV, with memes. It wasn't just that she lost, it was how she lost. Stiff testimony, inconsistent stories, and enough sound bites to keep TikTok running for years. She didn't just come across as untrustworthy, she came across as someone playing a role about being abused, in front of a jury that wasn't buying her performance. And look, Depp isn't some flawless victim either. He's a booze-soaked rock star caricature with his own baggage and history of questionable behavior. But the difference? People like Johnny Depp. I like Johnny Depp. They never liked Amber. She didn't have the career cachet or cultural goodwill to survive a scandal. He was fucking Jack Sparrow. She was the woman from Aquaman who wasn't Jason Momoa. That matters in a PR war. When the dust settled, he was back on the red carpet and she was Googling visa options in Madrid. Her attempt to reframe the outcome as a setback for women was a last-ditch effort to crawl back into relevance through the back door of victimhood. But the problem is, real victims don't usually walk out of court owing millions in damages because they committed defamation in a Washington Post op-ed that was clearly written with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The case didn't just ruin her image, it weaponized it against her. She became a shorthand for dishonesty, opportunism, and performative virtue signaling gone completely off the rails. And the industry responded exactly how you'd expect. They iced her out like she was a Weinstein cocktail party invite. Her scenes in Aquaman 2 were reportedly slashed down to glorified background noise. No new roles, no prestige projects, no redemption arc. Just a quiet exit out of Hollywood and into self-imposed exile. When your last major film credit is being digitally ignored while standing next to a shirtless man riding a CGI shark, you've officially bottomed out. Even her attempts at reinvention feel hollow. Moving to Europe, posing for artsy magazine shoots, making vague allusions to her new chapter, while pretending her old one wasn't broadcast to millions of viewers like a season finale of Law & Order Celebrity Unit. There's no reinvention here, just rebranding without the brand. The saddest part, there was a world where Amber Heard could have had a solid career. Mid-tier thrillers, indie dramas, maybe even a pivot to TV prestige if she played it right. But instead of humility, we got hubris. Instead of reflection, we got press tours. Instead of letting time do the work, she tried to outspin the truth, and the internet chewed her up for it. She's not a misunderstood icon, she's a PR lesson wrapped in self-delusion. There's something undeniably bleak about watching a public figure try to force a second act no one asked for, especially when their first act ended in such an unambiguous disaster. You can't empowerment brand your way out of a defamation ruling. You can't post your way back to likability. The audience has moved on. Studios have moved on. Even the activists have moved on. Amber Heard is no longer controversial. Like she was in Aquaman 2, she's just background noise. And the people who do still defend her, let's be honest, they're not watching her for her talent. They're just reflexively clinging to the narrative because admitting she was a bad bet would mean rethinking the whole house of cards they built around her. They want to believe in a world where Heard was the victim because the alternative, one where she might have exaggerated, manipulated, and weaponized real issues for personal gain, is just too inconvenient, too messy, too real. But that's the uncomfortable truth about the Amber Turd saga. It's not about heroes and villains. It's about what happens when a mediocre actress gets a taste of cultural power and thinks she's bulletproof. She tried to play the system, and the system, fickle, brutal, and deeply online, played her right back. She lost the case. She lost the audience. She lost the plot. And now she's just drifting, a tabloid ghost, a name that only trends when someone wants to relegate the trial for likes. Hollywood loves a comeback, but it also has a long memory. And right now, Amber Heard is synonymous with the kind of drama that studios avoid like a virus. She's not untouchable, but she is unnecessary. And in this business, that's far worse. So here she is, a woman with no real fan base, no real allies, and no real plan. She gambled it all on being believed. And now she's somewhere in Spain trying to pretend that the entire last 5 years were just a bad dream. But the rest of us remember, the memes remember, the internet never forgets. And in the end, that might be the only legacy she's got left. Drake, rapper and former actor, is what happens when you give a man everything. Fame, money, adoration, and he still chooses to act like a sulking teenager who just got unfollowed on Instagram. Once the crown prince of hip-hop, now a living meme thanks to Kendrick Lamar, all wrapped up in a midlife crisis. His music is still charting, sure, but the mystique, gone. The respect, cracking. The cool factor, buried somewhere under a pile of bad tattoos and DM receipts. Drake isn't aging like a fine wine, he's aging like a White Claw left open in the sun. You know, at one point, Drake was a cultural force. He redefined vulnerability in rap. He blurred the line between rapper and crooner, giving sad boys everywhere a soundtrack to cry to. He was calculated, clever, and always one step ahead. But then something shifted. Somewhere around the time he started beefing with children and texting minors, the aura curdled. Now he's not the tastemaker, he's the punchline. A man in his late 30s still rapping about ghosting girls half his age and flexing like he's in a group chat with the cast of Euphoria. The fall didn't happen all at once, it was death by 1,000 eye rolls. The cringe started creeping in a few albums ago. Certified Lover Boy felt like the title of a cologne you'd find at a gas station. Honestly, Nevermind sounded like a hostage note set to house music. And For All the Dogs,
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
At this point, Drake albums feel like the sonic equivalent of a shirtless selfie captioned, "I'm different," posted at 3 a.m. from a hotel bathroom. He's not making music anymore, he's trauma dumping over beats. And yes, he still gets the streams, but popularity isn't the same thing as credibility. And right now, Drake's credibility is rotting faster than his hairline. Because when you peel back the layers of champagne-soaked flexing and Toronto-bred smugness, you're left with a guy who peaked emotionally at 19 and has spent the last decade trying to turn stunted maturity into a brand. The internet, of course, has had a field day. Every new Drake photo becomes an immediate meme. The fingernail painting, the braided pigtails, the face tattoos, the obsession with looking like a SoundCloud rapper who got lost on the way to Hot Topic. It would be one thing if it was self-aware, but that's the real tragedy. Drake thinks he's still the blueprint. He thinks he's setting trends. Meanwhile, the culture has moved on, and he's out here dressing like a retired anime villain and calling it aesthetic. But let's address address the elephant in the DMs. The allegations, the friendships with teenage girls, the way he seems to collect 17-year-olds like they're Pokemon he's keeping in the vault for later. There's no concrete smoking gun, but the optics are radioactive. The Millie Bobby Brown situation alone should have been a career-redefining scandal, not a quirky footnote. "We just text a lot" isn't a clarification, it's a red flag gift wrapped in PR vagueness. And every time the topic comes up, his fans hand wave it away with the kind of mental gymnastics that would get them gold medals in the denial Olympics. And it's not just Millie Bobby Brown. The list of young, barely legal women he's been mentoring is long enough to raise eyebrows in a courtroom. He's either dangerously naive or shamelessly calculating, and neither option paints a flattering picture. At best, it's creepy. At worst, it's predatory behavior hiding behind a velvet rope of plausible deniability. Even his personal feuds have turned embarrassing. The Kendrick Lamar beef is only the latest example of a man who used to own the throne, now flailing to stay relevant. Drake used to dominate his enemies with surgical precision. Now he responds like someone subtweeting from their burner account. He disses like a man who spent too long rehearsing in the mirror and still can't land the punch. The arrogance is still there, but the edge is gone. And the real kicker, he's insecure. Always has been. He masks it with bravado, but his obsession with approval is suffocating. He'll drop a song, then immediately start scouring Twitter for validation. He's a billionaire who behaves like a freshman desperate to sit at the cool table. You can hear it in his music. Softer, lazier, full of recycled bars and emotional manipulation. He's not innovating, he's reacting, and it's starting to show. Then there's the fatherhood storyline. Arguably the most grown-up move he's made, and even that was botched. He didn't own up to having a kid until his reputation was torched with a diss track. Drake, the king of image control, got exposed by a man in a do-rag and never fully recovered. Since then, his attempts to play the doting dad feel less like growth and more like a PR cleanup operation with joint custody. And let's be clear, Drake's not going anywhere. He's too big to fail. He'll keep putting out albums, he'll keep racking up streams, but he's no longer the voice of a generation. He's the echo of one. A man who's too old for the party, but too rich to leave. He'll keep chasing relevance until it finally outruns him. And when it does, he won't go down in a blaze of glory. He'll fade out in a puff of disappointment, posting thirst traps and passive-aggressive captions like a middle-aged divorcee who peaked at prom. Drake is a cautionary tale dressed like a Fashion Nova ad, a reminder that success without evolution turns icons into caricatures. He had the throne, he had the voice. Now all he has is a rotating gallery of cringe and a timeline full of people wondering when the hell he's finally gonna grow up. That does it for this video, and I'm having a blast making these, so if you have any recommendations for celebrities you want me to tear apart, parts 4 or 5, drop them in the comments. Till next time, GG's.